Our domestic issues may be top of mind for most voters in the upcoming U.S. midterm elections. But in Ohio, there are concerns further afield. As factories close and more manufacturing moves abroad, China has become a campaign issue for politicians who want to win votes in America's former industrial heartland. Kate Fisher reports from Ohio.
Once a powerhouse of Midwest manufacturing, the state of Ohio is struggling to find its place in a post-industrial age. A few weeks ago, another factory closed in the state. GE Lighting in the town of Bucyrus outlasted every other lamp plant of its kind in the US. But now the lights are out there too.
Our community, Bucyrus, it's only 15,000 at most, and to lose a percentage of those jobs to overseas is huge. It affects every family in one way or another around here. So it's a sad loss. We've lost many different companies over the past decade.
With elections looming, closures like this could make a difference at the ballot box.
It's hard to compete with China. I mean, China doesn't have the regulations that we have, the wages.
The way that a politician standing for office talks about China, does that influence you?
Yeah, it does, absolutely. The politicians that are in office now, I don't think are doing what they need to do. I think the Republic is doing a lot better.
Never be dependent on communist China.
Democratic candidate for the US Senate, Tim Ryan, is trying to fight that perception in his campaign.
China. It's definitely China. One word, China. It is us versus China.
Painting his opponent, Trump-backed Republican J.D. Vance, as weak on China.
If you don't have the guts to take on China, how can you represent Ohio?
Ohio is a key battleground for these midterm elections, one of a handful of states that will determine whether the Republicans win back control of the Senate. And the White House is well aware of the stakes. President Biden has been here 7 times since taking office. Ohio State University political science professor Herb Asher says that given the tightness and significance of the race in Ohio, it's perhaps no surprise that China has become part of the discourse.
China is a major competitor. China is a major military power. It's a major diplomatic power. It's a major economic power. So I think that's, perfectly legitimate, even if it's exaggerated to say, we have to do a better job in terms of bringing jobs back to the United States. Here, where you've lost so many good jobs, well-paying, unionized jobs. So I think it does have some appeal here.
I'm just doing saddle ties on these.
The appeal of such a job is what got Charles Straley off drugs and onto an ironworker's apprenticeship.
I got hooked on the opioid epidemic that's going around. I was homeless, and things were just really ugly and bad for me, and I really have a future today.
Charles is part of a scheme run by the local county government.
We don't just provide access to training and pay people to go through these trainings, but we give them wraparound services because we want them to be successful while they're in the program and then after.
Commissioner Crawley says though some jobs may be leaving the state, others are arriving.
Now we have Intel coming, and so now we want to be the Silicon Valley of the Midwest.
President Biden broke ground on chipmaker Intel's new $20 billion plant in Ohio in September.
Pretty amazing.
The foundations are being dug for a new American industry, bringing more jobs and less reliance on China. While Intel's more than 300-hectare site remains little more than fields, it's unlikely to influence the outcome on November the 8th. But as states like Ohio adapt to the technology of tomorrow, China's impact on future American elections looks likely to diminish. Kate Fisher, CNA, Ohio.